Yeah, hello everyone and welcome back to Xadmin channel. So today we are going to discuss another annotation that is @put mapping annotation in a Spring Boot series. So basically @put mapping is a shortcut for using @request mapping annotation where we provide the method name as like request method dot put if we have to use put method, right? So it is used to map HTTP put request to a handler method in your Spring MVC controller. So basically, if we are using @put mapping, then it tells Spring container that which kind of HTTP method it is going to receive. Let's say that from a third party tool or a postman or from a UI, you are doing a put method request, then the container will read, actually it will read the path for which we have provided inside put mapping annotation, and with the put it will means know that it is this method is going to receive the put HTTP request only, right? So put mapping is a shortcut for using @request mapping where we provide the method name with request method dot put. So purpose of this @put mapping is to define a handler method that handles the HTTP put request. It means it handler an endpoint that which endpoint can be called using put method. So it also map the handler method to a specific URL pattern. So we can provide a URL with @put mapping so that the container will know that whenever there will be request with this URL and a put method, then it has to call this handler method or an endpoint. So basically it provide a clear and more readable alternative to using @request mapping method equals to request map method dot put. So we can use in place of request mapping annotation @put mapping, which gives a clear view to a developer that basically this endpoint or this handler method is used to handle put method, right? So now let's see one example how we can implement @put mapping. So before this lecture, I have also discussed about @post mapping, @request mapping, @get mapping. So if you have not checked that like lectures, then you can go to my previous video and also check. Now let's see how we can implement @put mapping. So for that, let me create one method or an endpoint to handle. So we have an employee model already, so let's say method name with update employee, and this will receive a string time because here we are going to use, so basically we are going to update employee information, right? So we are going to update employee information for a particular employee ID. So this is a method we created, this is an endpoint. So let's return something. Okay, so this will return, and now we need to mark this endpoint with the annotation so that we can tell Spring container that this handler method or a endpoint will be handled by which HTTP method. So here we are going to see put mapping. So @put mapping is coming from a Spring bind dot annotation, right? And here we can write the URL for which basically path it will get. So let me use update employee, and yeah, so basically this is @put mapping annotation. It will tell that this handler method will be called when request will come with a put method, and here we have defined a URL. This will say that this handler method will be handle or call with these URL. If there is a request with this URL, then only this endpoint will be called. So it will check two things: first, method HTTP method, that is put, and also the URL should be same like this, update/employee. And also we need to pass an employee ID in the request so that we have to update a particular employee information in a database for a particular employee ID. So this can be pass in a URL. So for that, let's see how we can do. You have to create a curly braces, and then you have to pass this employee ID as a value. So whatever value here you will pass, this will be received by employee ID here. So to receive in a method, we need to use @path variable. So this will take a variable from a path. Path means URL. This will pick employee ID value here, and it will store in employee ID variable. Now we need yeah, so this is a controller layer, right? So we have one service layer also. So let me call a service layer method, employee service dot update employee. So basically we don't have this method, so let me create this method quickly. So here we'll pass this employee ID as a string, right? And then we can store this to an employee as a model we have already. So let's say updated employee equals to employee service dot. So update employee is not there in the service class, so we need to create it. So let me go inside employee service, or let us create one method here, public. So this method I am creating inside a employee service class. It is a service layer. Employee is the return type, and the name of the method is update employee, which is receiving employee ID, right? So okay, so let's complete this first. So basically here we have already defined one get employee method. Okay, so let me call this dot get employee. Okay, and let's store this to a emp. So basically this method will return a new object of employee which contained ID, name, and country. Now let's do, yeah, so let's change. So we are going to change this ID with the setter method. So employee, so this ID we will pass employee ID, and then we will set to this object, right? So here we are not using any like database connectivity, or we have not stored this employee information in the database. But in the real example, in the real like project example, we have to use database connectivity, and this will be changed to the database, right? So for that you can use like save method. Okay, but here I am just showing you @put mapping, how to use that @put mapping in the controller, right? So that's why for that I am not using any database thing, just like hard coded this employee and just changing and then returning back. All right, so we need to return this back. So you can simply return this employee down. Let's say return emp. All right, so yeah, so this is the employee ID we are sending and then receiving. So here we have to return this updated employee, that's all, right? So but we have some error, let's see what it says. Okay, string, this is a string employee. What is the error? Okay, already we have received this, so we don't need to declare this, right? So with the update employee method we are going to pass the employee ID. Okay, and this is the employee, it will get returned. But here I want some like response entity, not directly the employee. So let me return as a response entity, and here we are passing this employee, and in the return we will create a new response entity object like this, and then we will pass this as a first argument updated employee. And here you can pass any status. Let's say we pass okay for this updated, so here you should get 200 okay status. right? Yeah, so this is my controller class. Here we are returning so here we are calling a service layer update employee, which is sending one employee ID, and then it is taking the employee object and then trying to set a new employee ID to that, and then returning the whole employee object with the new ID, which will come here, and then it will get added to a response entity. And we are also passing some HTTP status code. All right, yeah, so in this like manner we can use at the rate put mapping. So also you can use at the rate request mapping like this, as we have seen, right? So here you need to provide at the rate request mapping, and then you need to provide the method name like that. Okay, so this is the alternative way. Okay, like that you can provide, but here you need to provide a put method, because you need to define a put method, right? So this is the same, yeah, so this is the alternative way to use at the rate put mapping. Now let me save it, let me restart my service. So my application is starting, and it is started at port number 8080. All right, now let's go to the postman and let's do some testing. Yeah, so this is xadmin get employee detail. So let me hit this. So this will basically fetch the employee ID which is already there, right? With the employee ID 123 information, Ashish and India, right? Now what we have to do, we have to update this employee information. So for that already we have created. Now let me change the URL, update, and then we have employee slash employee. Let's say I want to update this with employee 7. So this is my employee ID, okay, which is going to get update to this by using put method. And here of course you need to change it to a put method, otherwise you will get an error that method not found something, right? So this is my API URL, and this is will be get stored by at the rate path variable annotation, and it will be get stored to employee ID in our controller. So let's hit this. So you see my employee ID gets changed, right? So with the put method, we change the employee ID of that employee object, and then we simply return it back to a response entity. And here we have written status as okay. So this you can see here, okay status, right? So whatever you will do change here, then the status can be like visible as a response, right? So all is this about at the rate put mapping, how you can use it. Thank you. In the next lecture we will see the more about another annotation. Thank you.